Hello. My name is Matt. If we haven't met before, I'm just going to add my thanks and welcome to Kirstine from earlier, particularly a warm welcome to all the friends and the family who are here to support Kate, Luke, and Scottie. I know it means an awful lot to them. They're getting changed right now, as they would say, but I'm saying it for them. Thank you for being here. I'm just going to drone on for a little while, and then we've got pizza and Prosecco at the end to look forward to. Today has actually been a full day of baptisms. We baptized 3 babies this morning, including my own. And I baptized little baby Noah there. A little Lion King moment. She's 7 months old. She looks lovely. Do not be deceived. We have finally got through the grueling, months-long SAS Who Dares Wins interrogation training of no sleep while bouncing a screaming baby up and down in a stress position. But we are finally through and we are getting some shut-eye. Whew. Why does anyone have children? And I know that's a question that many people have been asking. Generation Z, the pragmatically minded, values-driven, digital natives are said not to be very keen on the idea. Research suggests that almost half of Gen Z kids don't want kids. Some, instead, would prefer to pursue their own dreams and careers unhindered by the little nippers. Some want to work themselves out, heal from their own childhood upbringing. But of course, the state of the world that we live in plays a massive part on the decisions that they are making right now too. Financial challenges, stagnant salaries, rising interest rates, unattainable property. According to a UN report, we have 12 years to combat the climate catastrophe. There is a genuine possibility that the only way we will get enough protein into our diet is if we live off a diet solely of locusts and grubs. Hakuna Matata, everyone. This is the world we are coming to. Why on earth would we want to bring children into it? Now, we will have to see how things pan out with Gen Z as they enter into their late 20s, 30s, and 40s. But what is undeniable is that even in a world with unstable financial markets, uncertain career prospects, broken housing markets, war, widening wealth disparity, self-serving governments, unpayable student loans, a climate catastrophe, uncontrolled abuses of power, corruption, cover-ups, and many, 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 many sleepless nights, globally speaking, we just keep producing more babies. Now, my friend's uncle is a world-renowned population growth and birth control expert. We have an issue with global overpopulation. There are so many of us that we have used up the sustainable resources of more than 2.5 worlds every year since 2016. And so for sustainability reasons, it would be much better if every single family stuck to just one sprog. Now, my friend's uncle has dedicated his life to helping people in developing nations who don't want more children get the resources they need to have more children. Do you know how many children he has? 3. Do you know how many his sister has? 5. Do you know how many I have knowing all of this? 2. And one night, after months and months of sleepless bouncing up and down, my wife has one night of sleep, and she turns to me and goes, "Have you thought about a 3rd?" It is a nightmare! And why do we keep doing it? Why are we having children? And particularly, why are we having so many of them? Perhaps it's because you just can't quantify the value of a human life any more than you can count to infinity. That each human life, each one of us, is magical, infinitely valuable. And when a life is infinitely valuable, all the reasons not to have them just pale into insignificance. Infinitely, extraordinarily, and amazingly valuable. And it's why we believe that children must be loved and guided and nurtured and protected, and their potential, their vast potential, drawn out. Whether they want to become astrophysicists, architects, astronauts, astronomers, or simply astronomically well-followed TikTokers, it all matters. Because what you do is very important, because you fundamentally matter. And in my experience, people instinctively believe this, or at least they very much want to believe this. Of course, that's why the world just keeps producing more children. They're infinitely significant, aren't they? And because you were once one of these fragile little things, you are and were infinitely significant too. But do you feel it? Do you believe it? Is your eternal significance tank currently full to overflowing, or has the world begun to take its toll on you? So when our eternal sense of significance tanks begins to run a little low, we often engage in valiant attempts of self-actualization to top up. And in this city, all of the options are there on the table. Relationships, work, sex, success, soul cycle, fame, rescuing a pet, being rescued by a pet, or just turn on, tune in, and drop out and do some vigorous juicing. But even if we do get the best sex, the best fame, and the best jobs, are really any of these powerful enough to have a lasting difference on the itch for significance that we so long for and so need? You may be familiar with Dan Bilzerian. He's a poker player, businessman, and social media influencer. And it goes without saying that he is something of a polarizing character. He's one who has a net worth of $200 million. He claims to have slept with thousands of women over the last 10 years and even went through a phase of sleeping with 9 every single day. In the mid-2010s, he began to broadcast his escapades onto social media and became famous, building an audience of 33 million people. Money, sex, fame, success, he had it all. And yet, on a recent podcast, speaking about the height of his success and fame, he said this: I was on a 300-foot yacht. I had 27 women on board, and I was miserable. WTF, he said something else. It's like a deep-seated sense that there is a lack. And I think people get caught up in pleasure-seeking, but I'm one of the few people who can say that pleasure-seeking isn't the answer. I've experienced it all, but it just isn't the answer. Now, sadly, many of us do not need to experience all that Dan has in order to feel unsatisfied with what is on offer and begin to think that perhaps actually there's nothing at all to all of this. Maybe we don't matter. Maybe I'm not insignificant. Maybe we are just monkeys sitting on a ball of rock, sat floating in the vast ocean of space, spinning inexorably towards nothingness. But let's just have a party, hey? Because we're here anyway. Now, that wasn't a million miles away from what I felt and believed and thought before I became a Christian. Before I became a Christian, I experienced a deep sense of nihilism and disillusionment. Nihilism is the belief that actually everything is meaningless. And the switch which sort of triggered this for me was that I was extraordinarily stressed over the exams that I was just about to take. And as I'm sat there wallowing in my own misery, I'm just looking at how my whole life is going to pan out in front of me. And life to me and everybody's life just seems to be like a set of hurdles laid out in front of you. And your prize for getting over this hurdle is another hurdle. And it just goes on like this. And if you don't get over that hurdle, you have to sit there for a little while, you find another one, and you just go on and on and on until the race ends or the race ends you. And it wasn't that this life, that these hurdles were seemingly difficult or stressful or overwhelming. That wasn't the main problem. It was just, yeah, but what's the point? Why are we doing this? Is there really nothing more to life than this? Is it just a series of successes and failures until I die? And this deep sense of meaningless, to be honest, was frankly terrible. And I knew it wasn't a place that I wanted to live in for much longer. I didn't want to remain here. And it sent me on a journey, searching for meaning. Dabbled in a number of sort of things, including exploring joining the military, as so many of my friends did. I'm from a naval town originally. And so surely serving Queen and country would give meaning to my life. But what it actually impressed upon me was that I might die in service. And what I thought was, well, if there's nothing that I would give my life for, then you can be sure as hell there's nothing I'm going to die for either. The next stop, of course, was ticking off religion once and for all. So I started with Christianity. I thought that'd be quite quick. Until this point, Christianity was nothing more than dreary, boring Church of England services with my parents, and it had delivered nothing in the way of strong belief or ultimate meaning. So, of course, I headed off to another local church with the goal of disproving this religion so I could then move on to the next in my quest for meaning. And so I met a Christian leader who, I have to say, really did believe. And he had this easygoing way about him. And I really liked him a lot quite quickly. And he was different from me. He didn't seem to have these issues of existential angst that I was carrying around. And more than this, he had answers to my questions that blew wide open even the questions I was asking, stuff I hadn't even considered. And eventually we began discussing and assessing the intellectual and historical claims that Christianity might actually be true. Now, I'm an intelligent person, I'm just going to tell you that. And I am not going to believe something that is just made up BS. And so eventually I was arguing against the claims that Jesus of Nazareth, born 2,000 years ago, 3 days after being executed on a Roman cross, is resurrected from the dead. And as we're having this argument, I found myself shockingly and inexplicably becoming intellectually convinced. If you want to fast-track becoming a Christian or disproving Christianity, you have to start with the resurrection. One of the early Christian writers, Paul, says that if Jesus hasn't been raised from the dead, then your faith is useless. It's basically meaningless. Everything hangs on it. Disprove that, you disprove the whole thing. Now, among the overwhelming evidence I considered about the resurrection, and there was an awful lot, the bit that really shook me to my very core was hearing that almost all of Jesus' disciples died, holding to their unwavering conviction that Jesus had been raised from the dead. Now, of course, we know lots of people die for things that they believe in. No one's questioning the authenticity of a suicide bomber's belief. Of course they have faith. Of course they believe in their cause. But these disciples, they didn't believe saying, oh, we've got faith in Jesus. They died in extremely violent circumstances, unwilling to renounce that they had witnessed something with their very eyes that had blown open their nice, neat categories of how the world works and who God is. And as I'm assessing this, it made no sense that they were all mad in the same way. That doesn't make sense. It made no sense that they just experienced the same delusion, because of course nobody, that number of people wouldn't experience it in exactly the same way. And it made no sense that anybody would die for something that wasn't true, because there's nothing to gain apart from a very painful and violent death. And I knew that there was nothing in my life that I felt that was worth living for, and nothing in my life worth dying for either. But here, I found people who had both. That something in these previously cowardly, rather stupid men had transformed them and empowered them, and they'd become more than themselves, lived a life of total meaning and significance, and died one as well. And so to me, the best answer to the evidence was that Jesus had indeed been raised from the dead. I became a Christian because I was intellectually convinced. And from there, I opened myself to the risen and the living Jesus. And I experienced what so many Christians have experienced over millennia, that Jesus still comes to me and he makes himself known and makes me feel known. That there is a deep sense of being loved unconditionally. I found a courage within me that wasn't my own. I found a peace that surpassed all of the hurdles that, of course, I still faced, because that's just life. And now, I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that my life is significant, and that yours is deeply significant, that everyone matters. Consider this. The desire to drink points to something that may quench our thirst. The desire to eat points to something that might satisfy our hunger. The desire for relationships points to the existence of people who may care for us and love us. And the desire to matter, to have significance, points to the existence of something or someone who can unequivocally tell us who we are. Enough subjectivity. Various religious leaders have come and gone, but just let me acquaint you with a few things that they've said. Buddha said, I die seeking the truth. Jesus said, I am the truth. Muhammad said, I am a prophet of God. Jesus said, if you've seen me, you have seen God. Gandhi, he was once asked, where do you base your amazing teaching? He pulls out of his pocket a copy of the New Testament that says, Jesus of Nazareth. Israel was expecting a Messiah, and Jesus said, I, the one who is speaking, is him. Jesus outclaims every single one of them Which, of course, doesn't prove anything, does it? But it is interesting. You see, the Christian contention is that all people are of infinite significance because they have been made in the image of an infinite God. We share something of his DNA. It's this belief that drives us and directs us as a church with our time and our resources to partner with various organizations trying to solve problems, real problems of real people in Marylebone, London, and beyond. From our food bank, from our homeless meal to our work with our local school, we care about people. All life is important. All creation is important. It's why we think you are important. But the problem is that this DNA, it's been marred in us. And this marring, this contamination inhibits us from experiencing this infinite importance, infinite love, and infinite significance that our lives were created to live. And sometimes we are the ones who mar this within ourselves. And if we're honest for a moment, there are things, aren't there, that we don't really want to share or tell anyone else, that we want to just keep hidden. It's why we find relationships often so difficult. And sometimes it's not marred by our own actions, but it's marred by other people. We end up being battered and bruised by one another and the world. But of course, the point is not what or how we got into the mess. The point is that we are in the mess. And to all of us, Jesus responds with this allegory. He says this, "I am the gate for the sheep. All who have come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep have not listened to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full." Now, to put this in its context, Jesus has just healed a man who was blind from birth. And when his friends see him, they go, "We've got to take him to the Pharisees. We've got to take him to the religious elite of our community and take him there." And so when the Pharisees, they meet this man and his friends, the man who's been blind from birth, who is now healed, they don't focus on the fact that they're seeing a man who was blind from birth who can now see. They don't concentrate on his miraculous healing that occurred, that he was blind from birth, that for his whole life he was unable to see beauty and wonder. He was unable to see smiling faces and kind eyes or mountains or oceans, and he was robbed of one of life's great gifts, the ability to see. But now he can miraculously and gloriously see. And only, so he says, because Jesus Christ, the Holy Son of God, who has given up heaven to befriend us, to be with us, to be born in a stable, to be exiled as a refugee, and to spend his life with us, despite our imperfection, our lack of commitment, our rage, deception, and pain, not just to pronounce and administer unworldly wisdom, but miraculous physical healing. They don't see that, of course not. Of course not. They say, "Did this happen on the Sabbath?" The Sabbath is a day where you're not supposed to do any work. And miraculous healing sounds a lot like work. And so what do? They kick him out, this man who's been blind since birth. Don't you just love religious people? And it's at this point that Jesus steps in. And this is what he says. He says, "I'm forming a brand new community. It's going to be separate from religious and societal norms and institutions of this time or any time before or after. It's a new community. It's going to be guided by me, inaugurated by me, enabled by me." It's all about me. And it's this community is for those who believe in me. And for those who don't, it's going to be a challenge to them. But you religious elite in your ivory towers, you're the ones who are supposed to look after these people, but you haven't. You've acted for your own ends, selfishly and abusively. You were supposed to point people towards God, but you just pointed them to yourselves. But now, Jesus says, all of this is going to end. All of this is going to end because now I am here. I, Jesus, the true shepherd of the people. I'm leading people away from the religious abuse. I'm leading them from the world's abuse. I'm leading them away from the abuse that they've got themselves involved with into a whole new world, a world full of freedom, a wide open space of goodness and love, because that's just what I'm like. It's what I've come to do. And this is the offer of Jesus. Always was, always has been, always will be. I have come so that every single person may experience life and have it to the full. Why? For the same reason that people have children. For the same reason that we get to celebrate the lives of Scottie, Kate, and Luke today. Because he loves you. Because he believes your life is significant and it matters. You are of infinite significance, and he's coming that you might enjoy it. On a seat near you, there is a flyer for the life course, and I just want to flag it to you in case it's of interest to you. People often come into churches, baptism services, other situations. Maybe they haven't been in church for a while. Maybe they've never been in church at all. But in my experience, they do often have questions. We do enjoy talking about the deeper questions of life, but we tend to do it at a bar, around a dinner party, and it's great because, the wine's flowing, the conversation's flowing, and then after something, we've solved it. We've solved the meaning of life. This is fantastic. It's exciting. What a great evening. You wake up the next morning, it's like, yeah, we did have it. We had it. I just can't remember the finer details of how we made our conclusions. There'll be some people in this room who you just moved to London. You've become a full-on adult, and you just start to question, what do I believe? Do I still believe the same things I believed when I was a child? Like, why do I believe these things? The life course, it's the best context for those conversations and to address those kinds of questions. If you've ever thought, is there more to life than this? If you're curious about life and spirituality, if you're just looking to spend some time with some fellow free thinkers, then the life course really is for you. And so we start this Wednesday, 7 p.m. We're going to be downstairs. There'll be great food. At 7:30, my colleague John will speak with a very short talk. It will be funny. It will be interesting. It will be intellectually stimulating, and it will open up lots of ideas. And then we break into smaller groups to discuss what's said, and of course, anything else that we want to bring to the table. I reckon there's going to be about a little over 100 people there, atheists, agnostics, people with a hazy Christian background in their past, everybody on the whole spectrum of belief and none. And you get to set the agenda. It's not about us shoving anything down your throats. Week 1, it begins by looking at what meaning people give their lives. What does our best life look and feel like? Because questions like that really matter, and they do need to be addressed by us. It is categorically not a Bible study. It's not Sunday school. It's not about, do you know the answer? Oh, you do know the answer. Well done, you. Fantastic. It's not that. It's a chance to ask any question, state any opinion, and discuss any issue that you would like with like-minded people. Starts this Wednesday. Can't make it this week. Come next week. We're not interested in your money. You can come once, try it. You don't like it. You don't have to come again, but you should try it. And I think what people find is when they do try it, that they like it a lot more than they expected it to. They like the people who they're with. They like the task of engaging with these sorts of questions and ideas and with other people. And equally, if you're new to the church, we'd love you to do this course as well. It's the best way just to get to know some people, get to know us as a church. And hopefully you'll have picked up a little of this from the testimonies that were shared earlier. We really do care that this place is a safe and welcoming space for LGBT people. But we're not naive to the fact that church has not always been this way for people in the community. And so if you prefer, there are exclusively LGBT groups on the course too. So if that's you, if you're new to the church, then please also sign up. Again, Wednesday, 7 p.m. If you'd like to come, say hello to lovely Sally. She'll be at the back at the table over there, or you can come and speak to myself or Kirstine, who was doing the baptisms a little while ago. We'll be wandering around during Prosecco and pizza. Okay? Thanks so much for listening. We're going to sing a song, and then we're going to have some Prosecco.